Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. I read Permission to Feel a couple of years back and I loved it so much that I journaled about it, I wrote a book report about it, and I still occasionally flip through it for just like tidbits of information. And as a little reminder, this book talks about the Ruler Formula, which is an evidence-based approach to social and emotional learning created by Dr. Mark Brackett, who is the founding director of the Center for Emotional Intelligence at Yale, and also a professor in the Child Study Center in Yale University. Those are some credits if I've ever heard them. The idea behind the book is that by improving your emotional intelligence, you could actually improve pretty much every area of your life, from your relationships to your career to your education to even your physical and mental well-being. And although this is a skill that everyone is born with, not everyone knows how to utilize it, practice it, and grow it in an effective way. So that is what we're going to be chatting about in today's video. We'll talk about what emotional intelligence is, how it affects different areas of our life, and what the Ruler Formula is and how to actually apply it. Side note, I do want to do more book club videos where I talk about my non-fiction reads. I love learning about new mindsets, strategies, and ideas that could help my personal growth or my career growth or my relationship growth journey. And I love the idea of being able to help someone else do that as well, or at the very least introduce a book that will help them to do that. So let me know if this sounds interesting to you and if you would like more videos where I talk about the things I learned from some of my favorite nonfiction books. So when people typically think about emotions, it's not uncommon for them to feel completely avoidant about it, or to feel like it's all about getting in touch with your soft, touchy-feely side, and that it's the opposite of logic and reason. But really, that couldn't be further from the truth. Emotions and feelings are actually a system of information from our brain that we can learn from and take advantage of. The skill of being able to use and learn from the information that we can gather from our own emotions or those of others is what I would define as emotional intelligence. But the Oxford Dictionary definition of emotional intelligence is the capacity to be aware of, control, and express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and empathetically. Judiciously. Not a word I use super often. Pretty much how I interpret that is that emotional intelligence is really learning how to not let your feelings get in the way by understanding them better. I think sometimes there can be that disconnect where you're thinking, okay, if I just compartmentalize and forget about my emotions, then it will not get in the way of my life. But I think that understanding piece is what a lot of people are missing. So that is what we're going to really dig into today. So how does having better emotional intelligence actually affect our lives? Improving your emotional intelligence, or your EI, can actually help to balance and regulate our emotions, not let emotions have negative effects over our actions, and help us understand why we are feeling the way we're feeling in any given situation. Emotions can affect our mental and physical well-being and can actually alter the way that we do things, such as how we learn, how we make decisions, and how we handle relationships. For example, when it comes time to make a big decision, your emotions can actually affect how you decide and what your decision is based on whether it's like a positive or negative emotion. So if you're feeling negative emotions, it actually gets our brain to release cortisol, which is the stress hormone, which sounds bad, but isn't necessarily all that bad, because cortisol, or the stress hormone, can actually make us more cautious. So when you're making a big decision, having a little bit of that can actually help you potentially make a safer decision. But on the flip side, if you're experiencing positive emotions such as excitement or amusement or optimism, your brain is actually releasing serotonin or dopamine, which again can be good or bad because it could make you more focused, more calm, more clear-headed. But if you are overstimulated with that serotonin and dopamine hit, you could make a more risky or impulsive decision as well while you're on that high. So how can you actually distinguish between these like minute nuances that come with feelings to become a more productive, happier human being? So Mark Brackett actually created this framework called the Ruler, R-U-L-E-R, which can help you understand and master your emotions, which in turn would help reduce stress, burnout, enhance academic and career achievements, and even improve your personal relationships. So let's go over the ruler framework, what each of the letters of the acronym stand for, and how to actually apply it to your life. So the first R is the very first step, which is to actually recognize your emotions. In this step, all you have to do is realize that you're feeling some type of way. So it's all about taking a pause and actually physically stopping whatever you're doing and taking a step back and asking yourself, okay, what is my current emotional or mental state? How am I feeling? Whether it's a strong negative or positive emotion, actually taking the time to recognize that you're feeling something in that moment is a great start to building better emotional intelligence. We aren't really typically used to taking a pause while we're doing something just to identify that we're feeling something. So it may be sort of tricky in the beginning to actually remember to do it. And it can be especially tricky when you're caught up in anger or frustration or any type of strong negative emotion, because it's a lot easier in a happy situation for you to be like, oh my God, I'm enjoying this so much, I am so happy, versus when you're actually in a fight with someone, when you're in a really high stress situation, for you to actually pause and be like, holy crap, I'm stressed out. Which is why this first baby step is so important, because before you can do anything else to help regulate, understand your emotions, you need to at least recognize that you're feeling that emotion. Along with the ruler framework, he actually created this mood meter. The mood meter is really helpful. You can print it out. I used to have it stuck on the wall in front of my desk where I can see it every single day, because when I journaled, I would look on the mood meter and identify, okay, what am I feeling? So the y-axis represents your energy and the x-axis represents the pleasantness of the emotion. So if you are high energy but low pleasantness, you could be feeling enraged, panicked, stressed, frustrated, angry. If you're on the lower energy but also low pleasantness, those are typically your sad, down, apathetic, bored emotions. However, when you go up into the yellow quadrant, where it's high energy and high pleasantness, those are your excitement feelings, your hyper, your surprise, your exhilarated, your optimism. And then going back down to the green quadrant, which is your low energy but high pleasantness, those are your calm, chill, restful, satisfied emotions. I really love the way that he organized the mood meter. It makes it super simple to identify exactly how you're feeling by looking at the axes and first identify, okay, is this a pleasant feeling, yes or no? And do I have energy right now, yes or no? You obviously won't be able to pull this out every single time that you're feeling something. Like, you're not gonna be in the middle of a fight and be like, pause, hold up, I need to identify how I feel, and then you like look at your mood meter. But I think printing this out and taping it somewhere, or maybe even in your journal, or saving it as an image in your phone, can be really helpful for those more introspective moments where you're like, okay, I'm feeling something right now, I cannot label it or identify it properly, so let me quickly look at all the different things I could be feeling based on the mood meter to help you label and just like put into words how you feel, which is a great segue into the second and the third step. So the second step is U for understanding. Essentially, you want to understand why you're feeling that way and how it's actually affecting what you're doing. I know this is tough because it is so much easier to just compartmentalize the emotion and move on with your life, which isn't always a bad thing, actually. Compartmentalization is something that every human does to a certain extent, because it allows us to continue being productive and effective in whatever we're doing. Because if every time I was angry or stressed and I let that absolutely break me down.
The turtles. Where are the turtles?
Sausage.
Where are the turtles?
Come on, guys, get out of here.
Where are the turtles?
I would not be a very highly functional human being. Hell, I wouldn't be a functioning human being at all. So compartmentalization isn't necessarily a bad thing, but you do need to uncompartmentalize those feelings from time to time and go through them to understand why you felt that way, so that maybe you can tamper that feeling, like that strong negative feeling, the next time a similar situation happens. As Mark says, the core skill of understanding is a search for the underlying theme or possible cause that fuels the emotion. We're not asking questions and listening to answers just to provide a sympathetic ear. As we listen, we're looking for a meaning that goes deeper than the words being said. So that applies for both understanding your own emotions and understanding other people's emotions as well. Once you've gone through step one and you're able to take a pause and recognize that emotion, you should start questioning what's actually going on in your head. I've been finding that since I've been doing this, nearly 90% of the time, the trigger and what I thought was causing the negative emotion actually isn't usually the true reason why I'm feeling that negative emotion. Typically, when I feel any sort of strong negative emotion, it has been bubbling and boiling inside of me for a while, and just things keep adding on top of it to cause it to reach that point where I'm like, holy crap, I'm flooded and I feel like shit. So when you're able to start understanding and identifying the root cause of your emotions, it'll help you have better control over those emotions in those times of need, because maybe it wasn't what this person had said that made me flood over with emotion. So there's no reason for me to put that blame on them and actually project that emotion from them. So some questions that you can start asking yourself to help you understand and identify your emotions are: what just happened? What was I doing before this happened? What might have caused my feelings or reaction? What happened this morning or last night that might be involved in this? What has happened before with this specific person that this might be connected to? And what memories do I have about this situation or place? The next step, which is L for label, is to actually make connections between an emotional experience and the precise term to describe them. There's this quote in the book that says, if you can name it, you can tame it. And I think that is so clever, because as he explains in the book, by labeling your emotion, that's actually one form of regulation for your emotions as well. Labeling your emotions does four main really important things. It legitimizes and organizes our experiences. It helps others to meet our needs. It helps us to meet the needs of others, and it connects us to the rest of the world, because our emotions become this form of communication, and when you don't feel alone in the world, things will feel a lot less heavy. It's also a natural process in our brain that once we start labeling these emotions, our brains automatically start processing what to do with them as well. Because being able to identify an emotion in the moment actually forces you to separate yourself from the emotion and gives you a clearer understanding and a clearer brain to just think about, okay, what do I do from here now that I'm feeling this thing? I know it sounds a little bit woo-woo, but just try it the next time you're stressed, and maybe not when you're in front of other people, because that is like a huge next step, but maybe when you're alone and you're feeling stressed out, just take a moment and breathe and say to yourself, okay, I'm stressed right now. I'm really stressed right now because this project's due date's coming up, or I don't feel like I'm being supported by my team. Literally say it out loud, like verbalize it to yourself, and then pause again to see how you feel after you verbalize it. I'm not saying that stress or anxiety is just gonna go away automatically, but see if you feel like a little bit lighter, or if some space has been made for you, because that is genuinely how I feel when I'm able to sit and verbalize and identify exactly what I'm feeling and why I'm feeling it in that moment. That also segues really well into the fourth step, which is E for expression, meaning the expression of your emotion to people that matter to you, to the people who are close to you, or to any human being in general. The idea is you want to be able to express your emotions in an effective way based on who it is you're speaking to and the context of the situation. Before you go and word vomit on somebody, ask yourself first, can I share this? And if the answer is yes, then ask yourself, how much can I share about this, at what time, and with who? When we express our emotions, we're saying, here's what I feel and why, here's what I would like to happen next, and here's what I need from you. Being able to clearly communicate these three things is so important to healthy relationships, both romantic, platonic, and familial. But you also have to remember that one of the key skills to expression is also just listening. Not just hearing, but we have to be open, patient, and sympathetic to whatever is being communicated back to us, or if it's them expressing their feelings, to whatever they're actually saying. Obviously, it's a huge step between labeling your own emotions and then actually being able to express that to someone else. But some questions that you can start asking yourself are, what emotions do I show the most at home or at work? Are they really what I'm feeling? Or are they just feelings that I think I'm allowed to display in those specific situations? How would your spouse or partner or colleague or boss or kids or friends rate your expression skills? And I think those are 3 questions that are great to start with, because it helps you really understand, am I expressing my feelings to the people I care about or the people that matter to me? And if not, how can I potentially start taking those first steps to telling them about the emotions that I've been labeling and understanding in a way that would help our relationship or that would make sense to them. By the way, if you've gotten to step 4, you are already doing so much better than the rest of us. Being able to communicate your emotions in a healthy manner is a goal that so many people are trying to reach. Being able to not only recognize and understand, but also effectively express your emotions is one of the healthiest habits I think that you could build. Mika thinks so too, obviously. And sometimes it can be as simple as just saying, hey, I'm feeling really stressed out right now. Can we not have this conversation? Or can we reschedule this conversation at a later date? Something as small as just setting your boundary about something, or letting someone know, hey, this made me so happy. I appreciate you so much, are great practice for you to start at least saying your emotions so that you can have a deeper conversation and build a deeper connection with them later on. Okay, we're on the last step, which is back to the letter R, but this R is for regulate. The last step really is to regulate, to monitor, to modify, to temper your emotional reactions. But it's also about learning to accept them and deal with them, because not every emotional reaction needs to be modified per se. Let me make this clear. Emotional regulation is not about not feeling, neither is it about exerting really strong and tight control over how we're feeling. It's not about banishing the negative emotions and pretending they don't exist. It's really about giving ourselves and others the permission to actually feel those emotions, understand them, and do something about it. Dr. Mark Brackett identifies 5 broad categories of emotional regulation, but just know that within each of these categories, there are limitless, countless ways of you to actually practice those specific actions. But I'm just gonna go over the 5 broad categories and give you some examples, because this video could literally go on forever if we were to go down that path. But just know that these aren't meant to be really tight structures or rules that you have to follow, but more so just okay, these are some categories of actions that you can take, and you can interpret and move forward with those actions however works for you. So the 5 broad categories are mindful breathing. So this can be meditation, it can be yoga, it can really just be taking a few deep breaths in the moment of feeling something. The second category is forward-looking strategies, which is really to say you want to be able to maybe predict certain situations or scenarios that could cause negative emotions so that maybe you can circumvent those situations in the future. The third category are attention shifting strategies, which is when you temper an emotion by literally shifting your focus away from it. This is what I was saying earlier, sometimes some compartmentalization is good because it helps us get through our days. Compartmentalization is necessary, but you need to fish those emotions back out at some point to actually sort through them and understand them. Otherwise, it's just gonna build up in the back of your head and cause you to explode at some point. But for momentary regulation, when you need to just temper your emotions in the meantime, attention shifting strategies can actually work great. So if you're feeling really stressed out, you can leave the environment and go for a walk. If you're fighting with your partner and you're about to explode, you can take a break and go in the other room and just say I need a breather or else I'm gonna lose it. And maybe try to listen to music or watch something quickly, but essentially just doing something else that's gonna get your mind off of that explosive feeling that you're about to feel. The fourth category is cognitive reframing. He put this quote in the book from Hamlet that says, "There's nothing either good or bad, but thinking makes it so," and that is so extremely true. So cognitive reframing is when you take a situation and you actually reframe what that situation is or what it means to you so that you can react to your interpretation of that situation instead of whatever was actually happening at the time. So you're consciously making the decision to view the situation in a different way. The example that comes to mind is if your partner does something and it annoys you. Let's say he forgets to put the dishes away because he was too busy cleaning the living room or something. Instead of focusing on the thing that he didn't do, I would reframe it and be like, okay, but he is trying really hard and focusing on cleaning the living room so that we can enjoy our time in the living room after work. So is it really that important that he wasn't able to do this one thing when he was doing something else? So really it's that reappraisal of your emotion or of the situation at hand so that you can replace any negative emotion that you would be feeling with maybe a positive one, or at the very least a neutral one. The last category is the meta moment, which is just a fancy way of saying taking a pause. It's hitting the brakes and giving us the space and the time to deactivate and to think about the situation or how we're feeling more clearly. So again, communication is really key here, especially when someone else is involved. If you're in the middle of the fight, you just shutting up and leaving probably is going to escalate things for the other person. But if you were to communicate and say, hey, I think this conversation is really important, but I'm literally about to explode right now, so I need to go take a quick breather. Can we reschedule this? Or like, can we talk about this a little bit later? Just by doing that, you're not only going to help deactivate yourself when you go take that time, but you could actually help to deactivate the other person as well. A question that you can also ask yourself when you're taking your meta moment is, what would my best self do in this scenario? Visualizing this better version of us can actually help bring our attention away from the trigger and rather to our values instead. So if you're able to create that space and shift your focus over to your values, 9 out of 10 times you're going to be able to make a better decision about how to react to something than if you were just to tumble forward into that negative emotion and impulsively react. For the meta moment, he lists like 4 steps that you can take to practice the meta moment, which are sensing the shift, stopping or pausing, like literally, seeing your best self, and then you can strategize and act. I think this last step of regulating really builds off of all the previous steps of the ruler formula, because it's the recognition, the understanding, the labeling, and the communication that makes the regulation aspect more effective and actually productive for your life. Again, I know this is not easy. None of it is easy by any means, but that's really not the point of it. Like, feelings aren't supposed to be easy, which is why he even needed to build a framework for us to understand and regulate our emotions in the first place. But in order for us to do these things with our emotions, we first have to build the skills needed to do them. And that is what the ruler framework is all about. So that is the ruler framework and everything I've learned from the book Permission to Feel by Dr. Mark Brackett. Let me know what your favorite tidbit of this video was, or what you found to be most helpful. I think all of us are in very different stages of learning to be more emotionally intelligent, and it's totally fine if you're in stage 1 and still just trying to learn to recognize your emotion, because yes, this formula or this framework seems very linear, and it is, because you need to build up each of the skills to be able to get to the regulating aspect. But it isn't uncommon for people to be at different stages as well. Like, maybe somebody is really good at communicating their feeling, but when it comes to actually understanding their feelings themselves, or like why they're feeling that way, maybe they're not so great at that, because everyone is different, and how we experience and understand and regulate is very, very, very different. But with that, that ends my very first non-fiction book club video. If you have any questions about anything that I talked about or anything from within this book, please leave it in the comments down below. But other than that, I hope you guys are having an amazing day wherever you are in the world, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!